I just want to show you a little bit like how we try to integrate and also get adoption for the Reaxys RT, so the retrosynthesis prediction tool at our company. So our team, CASP team, started back in 2018, and it started just with the idea that that was just launched, the retrosynthesis prediction. It just became kind of possible. And we did initially some monitoring, and we made a plan. So I was not at BI at the moment, actually, to this and how we can sort of bring this to our company and take us next step forward. Then in 2019, there was this, well, I call it CASP1, sort of the first commercially available solution, and we did a pilot with this. And there we learned a lot, especially on how not to bring this to the end user and say, well, here's a tool and it's great and it's going to solve all your problems, because it doesn't, and the end user is very unhappy in the end. But with the core team, we also looked at Reaxys RT, which was a kind of like a beta version, and we knew we couldn't roll this out because it was too much beta. We then concluded 2020 with the early adopters, so these are all supposedly very enthusiastic people that use it. And feedback was very mellow at best. But we believed in Reaxys, in the RT tool. So when it became a little bit more mature in 2021, we tried this rollout again, and with the learnings that we had for CASP1, we did another pilot. This was much more successful, also because we had learned in the meantime how to deal with this program and how to set that up, how to create the support and the infrastructure for that. Then in the meantime, we did another sort of comparative study, if you will, between CASP1, CASP2, and Reaxys RT, and I have some more results on that later. And in 2022, we concluded this pilot, and overall the feedback was quite positive, actually, from the end users. 2023, we've licensed it, and we rolled it out in February. So this is the beaver from the Biberach research site, sort of our mascot. All right, so what we did as a CASP core team, so that is Theo and me and 8 others that are quite enthusiastic about this. We picked about 100 different compounds, and these can be very simple and very complex. And we looked at some different things, and we've done this study a few times on a lot of different solutions that were out there. And what we thought was the most important thing is the quality. So we looked at this first, and as you can see, and this is the last study that I showed on the timeline, for most, so the mean, and also for, let's say, CASP1, CASP2, and Reaxys, the quality, we said, well, dark green is 5 stars, and then 4 stars, 3 stars. We aim to get everything green or even blue would be acceptable, and red we would then consider not acceptable for the end user. And we see that actually most software is pretty good. There's certainly like half kind of scores green, and then there's a large chunk blue, which would be solutions like you wouldn't use it in the lab like this, but there's some good rationale behind it. We looked at diversity. We thought this could be another thing that is very important. Same kind of thing here, and if you squint your eyes a little bit, you see that most of them are around this 50% mark. They're more or less performing equally good or bad, but it seems that the end user doesn't really care about that too much. One thing that we noticed, and we kind of caught on to that maybe a little bit too late, is here reference quality. So see here there's Reaxys and there's CASP2. They score really well on reference quality, and that's because these two solutions are sitting on a very big database. And then there's CASP1, and that's like as an example here. Most references, they score mediocre at best, and actually only a very few are very detailed. And we found that this correlates really closely to user satisfaction. So when we ask the end users actually like how happy are you with the tool? I think most of them, it needs to have a certain level of quality, obviously, but it wasn't so important. If the user could see like, okay, this reaction looks bad to me, and then they open the reference and they see it makes no sense, or the reference shows like, it says in the note somewhere it doesn't work on heterocycles, they're actually quite happy with that. They can live with that. And there we saw that this maps very closely onto the reference quality. And then for CASP2, there's a little bit less satisfaction because the references are very limited, and it was kind of hard for the users to get that out. So that's for us what we learned when we positioned this tool, that yes, the quality needs to be there, but as long as the users can understand why the machine picked this reference, and maybe then apply the layer of expert knowledge and say, well, this reaction seems feasible, or this I've never heard of, but yeah, this sounds from the description, this could work, I'll give it a shot. So yeah, we found that Reaxys RT is the best fit for us. And for us, I don't have to mention, this is medicinal chemistry research. So we tend to be a bit more on the quick and dirty side, and that's also how we want to use the tool. We want to use it to accelerate our work, and not so much to maybe dive ultimately super deep into everything that is out there. Some other features that we found really attractive about Reaxys, and so compliments to everybody here. It is added to the existing homepage, and most of our users know how to use Reaxys. So that was easy. There's just another tab here. It's also very intuitive, so really good job on this. It's like this is the extended settings that some of the users don't even bother to go into. We are able to, at least up to a certain level that is now enough for now, is to integrate this into our IT landscape. So we want to, it's like this is really a tool for speed for us. So we really want to make it as easy for the user as possible to go from one thing, from an idea to the lab, and Reaxys allows this very well. Then I kind of mentioned this already in the reference quality. So it's based on the underlying Reaxys data. So you have a lot of data there, and it's directly you can directly find it in your results. It really immediately says, okay, this took it from this paper, 85% similarity. Well, self-learning, great. And one thing we really appreciated as a company is that we were in the game quite early, I think, and we were asked to consult on the user interface, and we got to shape it a little bit in the way we liked it, and we really appreciated this, and this really helps us see very quickly the data that we need. So I have this picture, this from a presentation we gave internally, but I think it also highlights a few important things that might be relevant here. So we have the sort of classical cycle that starts here. So we have me or one of my lab scientists thinking of a molecule. You go to the user interface to search the database, get the literature, you read it, you decide it's good, it's bad, and you go through this cycle. This costs a lot of time, and this is really for us time we do not always have. So the way we see it, and the way we positioned it now at BI, and as a chemistry version of Google, maybe, like there is this user interface where you do a search, but the search doesn't necessarily give you exactly what's in the database, but it does the database search for you, if you will. Then feeds that back to the user interface that we all know. You get the exact literature examples, they will be given, but if not, there's a synthesis proposal, which is good or bad, but you have a score there, and you can get the literature through this. And the additional layer that for us is very important, we have now connected it to our stock room. So we have this on one end as the endpoint of all the searches. So we know, or the algorithm knows that we have this somehow and feeds it back to that. And also, I have a picture on the next slide. We can directly check in our inventory if it's there and order it to the labs and start chemistry as soon as possible. And this is here, like final piece sort of here is we want to build this ELN of the future where everything is in one screen, in one maybe user interface. I don't think we're there next year. This will take a little longer, but we think that this is also, as an assistant, serving maybe in the background for this, connecting everything, very important. A few screenshots on how it looks now at BI. We use this software called Design Hub. I think that's not really a secret. We use this to draw, design molecules, to predict properties, MedChem. So this is where a lot of research project leaders or project teams spend their time. So we wanted to make as easy as possible for those users to maybe look at synthetic feasibility and get some ideas. So we have this, well, now 2-click button up here, which automatically starts a search in Reaxys. And then in Reaxys, whereas maybe our staff that works in the lab spends a lot of time and our synthesizers, the people that think about synthetic problems, they can go to Reaxys, and then they have this, it's a little bit small, but if you have this little shopping cart window here and you click on it, you get the custom availability. So we can directly see if this compound is in our inventory or if it's directly orderable, which saves us a lot of time planning synthesis, because we might opt to make a less ideal molecule for the problem if we can do it today rather than wait a week and make the ideal compound. So with that, I'm at my last slide, and then before I hand over to Theo. So we had some must-haves to roll this out, which we learned in the progress of doing like the other pilots and the other tests. We need to integrate this with our design hub. This is very important to gain traction, maybe with the design teams, so the PhD chemists maybe that think about the targets, and we need to integrate this in our compound management tools. And this is really important for the people in the lab, so they can really accelerate their work basically from day one. So we achieved that. What we have planned and what we really like to have is a way to feedback this information to this design hub. So like there's a unique link generated for each search. We would like to have an API that I think it's kind of possible that pulls that back, for example, into a description field there, so that only one user can do the search and then say, hey, look, this molecule is easy to synthesize. Everybody can just click on that link, see the results. Yeah, that is maybe on the roadmap for this year still, if it's possible. And then there are some open user stories that maybe today we cannot answer, but hopefully in the future. So computational chemistry user stories. So these guys generate 10 to 100,000 molecules overnight, and then they have some filtering on their side, but they would also like to know what we as synthetic chemists like to do with that. So we want to rank them for feasibility. And another thing, and I think this is much further in the future, maybe even full and seamless integration into our ELN of the future. One interface to do everything. Let's see how quickly we get there. And with that, I conclude my integration of Reaxys RT part, and I'll hand it over to Theo.
Yeah, so thanks Bart. So after Bart talked to you about the integration and how we arrived at Reaxys RT, I'd like to go more into the adoption aspect. So how can we get users to use the software, which is ultimately the important thing to make an impact. So first, a few words on the system that BI is operating in. We use the classic German setup. Yeah? So this means that most chemists have only vocational training, but nonetheless they are still deeply involved in synthesis planning. For example, they choose their own synthetic routes if they have enough expertise, and they usually also choose the reaction conditions they do reactions on. So we have continuous efforts to enable the development of the bench chemists into independent synthesis experts. And this is really important to the company, and we spend quite a lot of energy on this. So we have theoretical training by supervisors, which is really an important part of the job in our job description. We have synthesis worksheets on retrosynthesis, mechanisms, and reagents, which people can work on and discuss. We have seminars by external experts where we invite bench chemists to also be involved in, and we also give possibilities to acquire educational certificates off the job, just to name a few. And we really think that a good CASP system can significantly accelerate this development, which is of strategic interest to the company. And this is because arguably it is easier to recognize a good idea than to come up with one out of the blue yourself. And the evaluation of these proposals also trains critical thinking, and which is an important task for a scientist. And it can also spark insightful conversations with colleagues or your supervisor on whether a certain proposal would work or will not work, where there might be different opinions on. So where do we kind of stand on the adoption curve today, and where do we want to go? You can kind of part the adoption curve into 5 different types of adopters. Yeah, so we have the innovators who join something just because it's new. Then we have the early adopters who join when there is a benefit, when they perceive a benefit. We have the early majority who join when there really is a productivity gain, usually shown by the early adopters. We have the late majority who join when there's plenty of help and support. And we have the laggards who only join if they have to. So we as BI kind of at rollout are standing somewhere around here. So we have a few people in the CASP team who really are enthusiastic about these tools, who like the technology and are interested. And we now want to apply a grassroots type strategy to get to the end goal here. Yeah, so to reach the early majority at least, so 50+% of chemists regularly using this tool for synthesis planning. And we are applying kind of a grassroots strategy in contrast to like a top-down approach, because in technology, kind of that doesn't really work. So if you've ever had like some update of some app forced on you and it changes everything and you get really frustrated, then you kind of know what I'm talking about here. So our plan is to focus on the most interested individuals. So ask the question, who has the most to gain by using this tool, and who has the highest intrinsic motivation to use it? And then build on a diffusion into the company kind of by an organic approach here. And if this does not happen, this would have some kind of good reason, because I mean, we hire smart people, and when they don't do something, that usually has a valid reason, and we would then go back, understand that reason, and try to change something about it. So what are our plans concretely here? So the first question is, where do we find these most interested and motivated bench chemists? And the great thing is that they are already actively taking part in the educational offerings that we have, since they are non-mandatory. So it seems like a really good idea to integrate Reaxys RT into these educational offerings that we have. So we are planning to integrate them into the retrosynthesis worksheets, because just like teachers who need to think how they give homework in the times of ChatGPT, we also need to rethink, obviously, how we do these retrosynthesis worksheets to productively incorporate the usage of such a system here. We are also integrating the tool into weekly seminars on retrosynthesis with long open-ended discussions on the proposals in small groups where people can really discuss the chemistry and also can somewhat discuss the tool and the proposals that it's making. And some other grassroots strategies which we are applying are to use team members as influencers. So we have some very accomplished bench chemists in our team, which if they use the tool, people will start looking up to them, and which will have some kind of effect, we are sure. And so the gist of it is we are really focusing on the bench chemists, so on the people in the lab, in contrast maybe more to the PhDs and supervisors. And why is that? This is exactly also this grassroots strategy here. So we see that bench chemists have the strongest intrinsic motivation to use a tool because it accelerates their development so strongly. And if the bench chemists start approaching their supervisors with nice proposals, they will get interested anyway. And the education is also provided by the supervisors, so we kind of tangentially reach them as well. Yeah? So this is why we are focusing here on people really working in the lab. So to give you kind of an outlook on what we just told you, what our messages are and what we plan to do, we have successfully launched Reaxys RT at BI after comparing it with other systems. And really important for the success here was a strong support from our internal IT and a dedicated team working on this tool and getting it into the company. A great communication with Elsevier was also very important and much appreciated, and a close exchange with other initiatives on different IT tools to kind of get the integration already prepared for the rollout. We defined this integration as must-have, so we really wanted it in our systems and not like as a standalone thing which people need to jump to use. It should really be integrated here to get people to use it. And for rollout, we are applying a kind of bottom-up strategy, and this requires some continuous support, of course, after the rollout. Yeah? So we are integrating it into existing formats for education, and we're amplifying these early adopters' voice. So if people start to use it, we will organize some exchanges and let them show this at bigger meetings to gain some visibility for the tool and also for the people using it. And with that, I think we have a few minutes for questions.